Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I head to the gym. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It's a kind of slightly cloudy day here in suburban Chicago. The temperature is pretty nice. It's just under 60 degrees, so very comfortable weather for walking outside. I am on my way to the gym, and if I walk the short way, it's about a 10-minute walk. If I walk the long way, I think it's like 20-25 minutes, which occurred to me is perfect for I don't know, a pick up and deliver episode. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to try this. If it works out, this might be, at least this summer, part of my regular process for getting these recorded, is I'll record them on the way to the gym. Maybe. We'll see. I guess that's inadvertently revealing to you how studious I am about getting to the gym. It also, I guess, since the walk to the gym is short if I go the other way, maybe on the days I don't record or don't say I'm on the way to the gym, it's just because I'm walking the short way. Yeah, think about that. Ha! All right. Well, I was looking over the episodes that I've done recently, and I realized it's been a little while since I've done an episode about film. Now, the reason for that, walking by, they're doing some construction at the residential elderly home next door. So that's what that is. It's a Bobcat. Actually, it might be some other brand of digging machine. It looks like a Bobcat, but Bobcat is like Kleenex, I think. It's a brand name. Anyhow, I was looking over the podcast episodes and I realized it's been like 15 episodes since I talked about film. And that's because I didn't watch very many movies in April. And I watched a few more in May, but not a ton. So in May, I decided not to do a film episode because I just hadn't watched that many movies. And so now between April and May, I've got a good lineup of films to talk about. So today is going to be the April and May 2023 Movie Roundup. For those of you new to the podcast, in a Movie Roundup episode, I talk about films that I watched in the last couple months, and I talk about them a little bit, what I thought about them, if I've seen them before, and then often I'll connect them to some sort of board game or role-playing game experience, because that's why you come here, for the gameplay, not for the film analysis. Nonetheless, I enjoy spending a little bit of time talking about other kinds of media, and hopefully you do too. If not, podcast is only 20 minutes or so you could just listen, it'll be over soon, or you could skip ahead. I hope you stay though. Also, I'd love to hear what kinds of things you've been watching. You can share those ideas, you can share that over on Board Game Geek and Guild 3269, where I would love to hear from you about those things. Okay, so to start off, in April we watched Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This was the first movie I went to in the theater in quite a while, and I haven't gone back since. We used to go to the theater about once a month. We haven't really done that since the pandemic ended, and I don't really miss it. I mean, the theater experience is great if everybody's on their best behavior, but it's so common that somebody will get their phone out during the screening, or be talking during the screening, or just being rude and annoyingly loud. And I don't really want to pay to go and see a movie with a bunch of distractions from people I don't know. So yeah, I think my experience of the cinema itself has reduced dramatically, in part because I'm just tired of people at the movies. That said, we had a really nice time at Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. It is a Dungeons and Dragons kind of story set in the Forgotten Realms setting, which is one of the canonical Dungeons and Dragons settings. It's the one where the city of Waterdeep is, and so on. I don't know that it's even worth mentioning the story to you, because it's not really about that. It's amusing and well-written and fun and not too long, and kind of everything you would want a Dungeons and Dragons movie to be. There's lots of fan service, lots of monsters you want to see, lots of nods to other people or places or things that are part of D&D lore, including, I believe, the Dungeons and Dragons party from the original Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. That's pretty funny. So generally, yeah, pretty great. There are a couple parts that feel very much like elements you would encounter in a D&D campaign. There's a sequence early on where the main characters have come up with a sort of hilarious or preposterous solution to a problem, and even though a more reasonable solution presents itself, they ignore it in favor of the plan they'd made to begin with, which is sort of something that players tend to do. I also really like the implementation of the bard as a figure sort of seeing what kinds of things they do and are good at. So yeah, overall, pretty great. Very enjoyable. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Obviously, the thing to play alongside Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is Dungeons & Dragons. I know that it did rekindle my son's enthusiasm to try the system. In fact, he's going to be playing in the local game stores Dungeons & Dragons sessions that they run. He's going to be playing in those. So that's pretty fun. Hopefully that will go well and he'll enjoy it. Next up is the movie Centurion. I watched this. I encountered it in a daily movie quiz I do called Framed, where you get a still from a movie and then you guess what movie it's from. And then you get another still from the movie and you guess, and you keep going until you've guessed wrong 6 times or you get it correct. The twist or the clever part is that the stills are often pretty obscure or hard to see exactly, like the early ones. It's more just sort of about mood. Every now and again I'll get one from the first still, but it's very rare. Sometimes from the second. Usually it's the third still or later. It's usually around still 4 that they show you a recognizable actor, somebody who you might have heard of before. And then still 5 is some more recognizable people, but you don't usually get like the main character in the film until still 6. There was one for a movie I'd never heard of called Centurion, and it starred, I can't remember his name, one of those chisel-jawed beefcake guys who's a pretty good actor also. I mean, he's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger beefy, but certainly a leading man type. And a number of recognizable other figures, including the guy who played the Onion Knight in the Lord of the Rings or the Game of Thrones TV show. And the movie is about a bunch of Roman soldiers who are garrisoned in northern England, and they have been ordered to take down a notorious band of Picts. They fail at that task and most of them are killed, and one of the ones who's left ends up going on the run, both from the Picts and from the remaining Romans who don't want to admit that they lost a battle, and so they are trying to kill all the witnesses to it. It's a weird movie. I mean, it's entertaining enough. It is a sort of medieval warrior story. I found myself really struggling with it a little bit. I found myself struggling with it a little bit because the main character is part of an occupying force, and the people who killed him are locals who don't want to be occupied and have a strong, neat desire for vengeance against the Romans, who have killed a bunch of their family members and stuff. So the movie does not make me sympathetic toward the Roman. And, in that regard, that's what I thought of it. It was fine. This movie does make me want to play Blood of the Northmen again. This is the Carl Chuddick tile-laying game that involves tribes of northern warriors. I think they're mostly Scandinavian, but it still has that same feel to it, in which you're charging around, taking land, fighting each other. It's pretty great, and this film reminded me of that a little bit. So that's the Centurion. Next up, we have a movie I got from the Lucky Day shelf at the library. I don't know if your library has a Lucky Day shelf, but the way ours works, they have a number of recent and popular books and movies that they have on a special shelf they call the Lucky Day shelf. And they call it that because these movies have been sequestered from the normal reservation system. You're not able to reserve or put on hold these movies and books, in part because I guess they're super popular, and so they want people to be able to find them sort of randomly, but also they like having this thing you can come and browse at the library and maybe find something cool. Like I said, they call it the Lucky Day shelf because if you find one, it's your lucky day. The big thing is that they have a more limited checkout thing. I think for books it's 2 weeks, and for movies it's a week, and you can't renew them. But anyway, on the Lucky Day shelf, I found a copy of Confess Fletch, which is the new Fletch movie based on the original property, starring John Hamm. And boy, it was good. If you haven't had a chance to see it, it is an excellent sort of grown-up comedy in the light of the old Fletch movies, really. Although it's nice because, Chevy Chase his reputation is so bad. And as far as I know, John Hamm's is not. And so watching John Hamm play this role worked really well. He had a really nice demeanor for playing the character, and it was very enjoyable. So I really recommend, if you get a chance, to check out Confess Fletch. Now this is a game that I don't know how you play it in board game form. It feels like something that could definitely become a good role-playing situation. Maybe it's a Fiasco type game, although Fiasco generally involves the characters making poor choices, and the whole point is Fletch is really smart and a smart aleck. But the smart aleck part fits Fiasco, or it seems to me. So yeah, I would definitely check it out if you get a chance, and maybe play a round of Fiasco for Confess Fletch. And then finally, I watched a movie I've been meaning to rewatch for a while. It's come up a couple times in like my social media and stuff, and this is The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai in the Eighth Dimension. And I think I watched this once in like high school. I'd heard about it, but none of it stuck in my head. It was all gone. I just remembered it was really weird. So watching it with a bit more perspective, a bit more knowledge of actors, it was really fun to watch and see all of these actors who became famous later or were famous at the time and continued to be famous, making this sort of gonzo, bizarre comedy that clearly they were just swinging for the bleachers. And while some people get it and love it and think it's great, it did not click with so many people. One of the things that I think comedy writers will do sometimes that I think is hilarious is develop this notion of like the public celebrity genius. This seems like a thing that I've seen in other texts, although I can't really think of another one. I mean, Sherlock Holmes, I guess, would be the other one. But this idea like Buckaroo Banzai is a world famous figure for being in a band and being a scientist. It's weird. It is a weird movie. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out if you can, if for no other reason than that there's a character called Big Booty. And it's funny to watch all of these sort of semi-serious actors keep saying Big Booty. That's Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. I haven't even explained what it's about. I don't know what it's about. It's a story about like a genius scientist who discovers something remarkable and accidentally opens up a doorway to another dimension where a bunch of evil interdimensional scientists live. Perhaps. It's strange. Definitely worth watching if you get a chance. It stars Peter Weller, Christopher Lloyd, John Lithgow, and Ellen Barston, and a bunch of other, Dan Hedaya is in it, a bunch of other people that you've seen before. One of the guys from Alias, I can't remember his name either. Anyhow, an excellent and totally bizarre movie. Now, what game would I suggest you play with this? I think the game that I would put here is A Study in Emerald. In part because A Study in Emerald feels like it has the same kind of manic hodgepodge of chaos and craziness and wild choices. Like when Martin Wallace is making A Study in Emerald, he's like, yeah, we'll throw in everything I can think of. And that's what happened there, and it's great. I love it. So yeah, if you get a chance to play A Study in Emerald, particularly A Study in Emerald First Edition, although Second Edition is okay, I would recommend it. And then watch Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Now those are all movies that I watched for the first time, or so nearly the first time that I might as well call it the first time, in the case of Buckaroo Banzai. But I did revisit 4 movies, so I'm going to mention those quickly. First off, we watched Game Night. We showed that to my daughter. That movie really holds up. It's quite a delight. If you get a chance to watch Game Night, well worth it. As my daughter says, gives vibes of date night. The movies seem very connected and equally so. Not dissimilar from something like After Hours, where people sort of representing the everyday or the regular perspective of the world end up trapped in this sort of chaotic, funny, slightly dangerous cycle of interactions with weird people. Like I said, After Hours feels like the origin of that formula. You could even look at something like What's Up, Tiger Lily as an earlier version of that, which is also excellent. As for a game that would do that, I don't know. I don't know a game that would fit Game Night, although you could kind of play anything, right? And call it Game Night. My daughter and I did revisit Alien. She'd never seen it before, and I figured, yeah, it's time. Alien holds up. It's pretty good. It's not as scary as it probably was in 1979. My daughter said she did not find it scary at all. But it was still fun. I always like seeing Jonesy the cat running around, and enjoyed it quite a bit. It does make me want to break out. I have not had a chance yet. Alien: Fate of Nostromo, which is of course based on that film. On the last two movies I rewatched Empire Records, which is one of my favorite teen movies from when I was younger. It's a delightful story about teens trying to figure out their way in the world, and you should check it out if you haven't. In time for Rex Manning Day, I would say. And finally, we rewatched The Big Year because my mom hadn't seen it and she was visiting. The Big Year is based on a creative nonfiction book of the same title about people who spend a year trying to see every bird in North America that they can, and often do so spending hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars driving or flying or whatever around the country in order to do that. It's a pretty great movie adaptation of a decent book. I thought the book was fine. The movie does a nice job of kind of distilling the amusing parts of it, and it's charming, I would say. Charming is a good word. It is a no pressure movie. You can enjoy it, and when you're done, you can put it away and forget about it until 5 years later. You're like, oh, that was a fun movie. You should watch that again. That's The Big Year. Recommend. Jack Black, Steve Martin, Owen Wilson, and with a small supporting part from the woman who played Karen on The Office and who played the nurse friend on Parks and Rec. Can't remember that actress's name. Jones. I can't remember what it was. Anyhow, thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye. John from Third Rock from the Sun. Oh, what's his name?
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.